The massive holographic projector hummed to life in the center of the United Nations Assembly Hall, casting strange blue light across hundreds of worried faces. World leaders from every nation sat in stunned silence as the alien figure materialized. Before them, Ambassador Kreese of the Zephyrians stood 7 feet tall, his body made of living crystal that reflected the harsh lights like a deadly prism. Humans of Earth. The alien's voice echoed without warmth or emotion, each word precisely calculated. Your species has become a threat to galactic peace. You expand too quickly. You fight too often. You ask too many questions. The crystal. Being paused, letting his words sink into every human heart like ice. The Galactic Council has reached a final decision. You have exactly 72 hours to evacuate your planet completely. Every man, woman, and child must leave Earth forever. President Lee sat in the front row, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair so tightly his knuckles turned white. Around him, other leaders whispered frantically to their advisors, but he remained perfectly still. He had been expecting this day for years. If even one human remains on Earth after the deadline, Ambassador Kreese continued, we will cleanse your world with fire. This is not a negotiation. This is your final warning. The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving the assembly hall. In shocked silence, 3,000 miles away in Seoul, Admiral Minho Kim watched the same message on his private screen. The command center around him buzzed with activity, as dozens of officers worked at their stations, but Minho felt completely alone. On his tactical display, red dots showed the positions of alien warships surrounding Earth. Like hungry wolves, the Zephyrians had brought their crystal ships that could cut through steel with beams of pure light. The collective arrived with their bioships grown from living tissue, each one controlled by thousands of connected minds, thinking as one. Most terrifying of all, the ancient Vorthok Empire had sent their planet-killer vessels, massive black ships that had destroyed entire worlds during their 1,000-year reign of terror. Sir, Commander Sora Park approached his chair, her young face trying to hide her fear. The evacuation protocols are now active across all networks. Every news station is broadcasting the emergency procedures. President Lee has just authorized Contingency 7. Minho closed his eyes for a moment. Contingency 7. The plan they had spent decades preparing, but hoped never to use. The plan that would either save humanity, or damn them all, as the monsters the aliens claimed they were. Very well, Commander, he said quietly. Send the activation codes to all stations. Tell them the children are coming home to roost. Fingers moved quickly across her holographic control panel, sending encrypted messages to secret locations throughout the solar system. Hidden bases that had been built in asteroid belts, on the dark sides of moons, and in the cold spaces between planets. Bases filled with weapons and ships that officially did not exist. On Earth's surface, the evacuation began immediately. Massive transport ships launched from spaceports around the world, their hulls gleaming silver in the sunlight. Millions of people watched from their homes as the vessels climbed toward the stars, carrying what appeared to be desperate refugees fleeing their doomed world. The alien fleets watched these ships leave, and felt satisfied. The humans were obeying. They were showing their true nature as cowards who would abandon their home rather than fight. Soon, Earth would be empty, and the galaxy would be safe from human aggression. But the aliens could not see inside those transport ships. They could not see Captain Eugene Choi standing on the bridge of what looked like a civilian evacuation vessel, smiling coldly as she checked her weapon systems. They could not see the hundreds of similar ships, each one disguised as a refugee carrier, but actually loaded with humanity's most advanced warships. Stellar wind to all Wolfpack units, Eugene whispered into her communication device. The sheep's clothing is holding perfectly. All wolves remain hidden and ready. Throughout the solar system, other preparations continued in secret. On Titan, Commander Jiangsu, activated weapons that had been buried under the ice for 20 years. On Mars, Colonel Haywan powered up defensive systems hidden inside what appeared to be mining equipment. In the asteroid belt, Captain Wu Jin prepared to launch from a base the aliens thought was just floating space rock. Min-Ho stood at his command center window, looking up at the night sky where alien ships waited like dark angels of death. In 68 hours, those ships would begin firing on an empty planet, expecting to find only the ruins of human civilization. Instead, they would discover that humanity had been preparing for this moment for generations. They would learn that every human trade mission, every peaceful contact, every diplomatic meeting had been part of a vast intelligence operation. They would realize that the species they thought they knew was something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Sir Sora reported from her station. All shadow networks confirm ready status. Operation Deep Strike is prepared for your command. Minho nodded slowly. The aliens wanted to see humanity's true nature when cornered. Soon, they would get exactly what they asked for. The morning sun painted the sky orange and red as massive ships rose from spaceports across Earth. From New York to Tokyo, from London to Sydney, the giant vessels climbed slowly toward the stars, their metal hulls catching the light like mirrors. On the ground below, crowds of people gathered to watch what they believed was humanity's final exodus from their home world. President Jinwoo Lee stood behind a podium in Seoul. Cameras from around the world focused on his tired face. His voice, carried across every television, radio, and internet stream on the planet, as he delivered what appeared to be humanity's surrender speech. "My fellow humans," he began, his words heavy with false sorrow. "Today, we leave the world that gave us birth. We go not in anger, but in peace. We have always been a species that chooses understanding over violence, cooperation over conflict." He paused, allowing a single tear to roll down his cheek for the cameras. "We will find new homes among the stars, and perhaps one day, we will earn the right to return to Earth through peaceful means." The alien commanders watching from orbit felt pleased with themselves. The humans were showing their true colors at last, proving they were nothing more than cowards who would abandon everything rather than fight. Ambassador Kreese transmitted his satisfaction to the other species leaders, his crystal body glowing brighter with each successful ship launch. But 300 miles above Earth's surface, Captain Yujin Choi watched the same speech from the bridge of her vessel and smiled like a wolf preparing to hunt. Her ship looked exactly like the other evacuation transports, with the same silver hull and the same peaceful markings. The alien scanners saw a harmless refugee carrier filled with frightened families. They could not see through the false walls that hid weapons powerful enough to crack a planet in half. They could not detect the advanced stealth systems, the quantum torpedoes, or the plasma cannons that could melt through any known armor. Most importantly, they could not see the 300 elite soldiers sleeping in cryopods, waiting for their moment to wake up and remind the galaxy why humans had conquered their own world. "Stellar wind to all Wolfpack units," Yujin whispered into her communication device, using codes the aliens had never learned to break. "The sheep's clothing is holding perfectly. All wolves remain hidden and ready to show their teeth." Lieutenant Taemin Yoon sat at his monitoring station, listening to alien communications through equipment that officially did not exist. His fingers moved across the controls as he recorded every message, every order, every casual conversation between enemy ships. For the past 6 hours, he had been listening to the aliens celebrate their victory. "Captain," he reported quietly, "they are very happy with themselves. The Zephyrian commander just sent a message saying, the human plague ends tomorrow. The collective ships are already planning how to divide Earth's resources. The Vorthok are discussing which human cities they want to use for target practice." Yu's smile grew colder. "Let them celebrate, Lieutenant. In 18 hours, we will give them something much more interesting to talk about." All around Earth's orbit, similar scenes played out on 300 other ships. Each vessel carried the same false appearance, the same hidden weapons, the same crews of humanity's finest warriors. Together, they represented the largest military deception in human history, a magic trick performed on a galactic scale. The real evacuation had happened months ago, using secret routes through asteroid fields and hidden hyperspace lanes that human scouts had discovered decades earlier. The actual refugees were already safe in colonies the aliens knew nothing about, worlds hidden so well that even humanity's own government barely remembered they existed. But the aliens watching Earth saw exactly what they expected to see, a defeated species running away with their tails between their legs, carrying nothing but their shame and their desperate hope for mercy. In the collective bioship harmony of thought, drone worker X-47 continued his duties, as he had for the past 3 years. The other drones never suspected that behind his blank expression and mechanical movements, the mind of Agent Donghae Lim was memorizing every detail of their ship's defenses. They had accepted him as one of their own after his deep cover insertion, never realizing that humans could learn to think like them when necessary. Aboard the Vorthok destroyer, Death's Edge, maintenance worker Colnine cleaned the weapon systems with the same efficiency he had shown for 2 years. The Vorthok warriors ignored him completely, seeing only another slave species doing menial labor. They never looked closely enough to notice that Colnine's eyes held the intelligence of Commander Minjun Park, who had volunteered for surgical alteration to infiltrate their ranks. Similar agents worked throughout the alien fleet, having spent years earning trust and learning weaknesses. They had studied alien technology, memorized ship layouts, and identified the exact moments when they could cause maximum damage from within. As the countdown timers showed 18 hours remaining, these sleeper agents checked their hidden weapons one final time. Soon, they would reveal that humanity's greatest strength was not their firepower or their courage, but their patience. They could wait decades for the perfect moment to strike, and when that moment came, their enemies would never see it coming. The deception was complete. The trap was set. All that remained was for the aliens to spring it themselves. The 72-hour deadline came and went like a whisper in the wind. Earth hung in space, apparently empty and defenseless, waiting for the alien fleets to begin their promised destruction. The massive warships of 3 species surrounded the blue planet, like vultures circling a dying animal, their weapons charged and ready to turn continents into ashdot. Admiral Minho Kim stood in his command center deep beneath Seoul, watching as holographic projectors activated around him. His image appeared simultaneously on the bridge of every alien ship in the fleet, from the smallest collective scout to the largest Vorthok battlecruiser. Despite having enough firepower pointed at his world to destroy it 100 times over, his face remained perfectly calm. "Commanders of the Galactic Alliance," he began, his voice steady and clear. "You came to Earth believing you understood humanity. You thought you knew what we were capable of. You believed your intelligence reports and your careful observations." He paused, letting his words sink in before delivering the blow that would change everything. "You were completely wrong." Ambassador Chris, his crystal body flickering with confused patterns of light, leaned forward in his command chair. "Human Admiral, your world is empty. Your species has fled. What possible relevance could your words have now?" Minho smiled, and something in that expression made the alien commanders feel suddenly cold. "Commander Park, if you would be so kind as to activate the Revelation Protocol." 3,000 light-years away, on what every alien survey had reported as a lifeless asteroid drifting through empty space, Intelligence Officer Haijin Shin pressed a single button. The asteroid's surface split open like a flower blooming, revealing a massive military installation that had been hidden there for 30 years. Similar activations began happening across the galaxy as her signal reached other hidden bases. "Sir," she reported through encrypted channels, "all shadow networks are now online. The entire galaxy can see us." The effect was immediate and terrifying. On every alien ship's tactical display, thousands of new contacts suddenly appeared where none had existed moments before. Red dots materialized in star systems the aliens had surveyed countless times, in asteroid belts they had passed through for decades, in nebulae they had used as navigation markers, human bases, human fleets, human installations that had been invisible for generations, waiting patiently for this exact moment. "Commander?" Sora Park's voice suddenly filled every communication channel in the galaxy, speaking on frequencies that should have been impossible for humans to access. "Attention, Galactic Alliance. Allow me to educate you about something you clearly never understood." Her words reached every ship, every station, every planet connected to the Galactic Communication Network. "Every trade route you have used for the past 50 years, we mapped first. Every star system you claimed as your own, we had already explored. Every piece of technology you thought gave you an advantage, we studied and improved upon decades ago." The Vorthok fleet commander, a massive warrior whose species had conquered half the galaxy, stared at his displays in disbelief. "This cannot be real. Our sensors would have detected these installations." "Your sensors," Minho replied with that same cold smile, "detected exactly what we programmed them to detect. Every time your ships scanned those areas, our systems fed false information directly into your computers. You saw empty space because we wanted you to see empty space." Captain Eugen, still aboard her disguised warship, couldn't help but laugh as she watched the alien reactions. Her vessel was one of 300 similar ships that had been hiding in plain sight. But now the real surprise was beginning. All around Earth's orbit, her fellow captains were preparing to drop their disguises and show the aliens what human engineering could really accomplish. Intelligence. Officer Hygen activated another sequence of commands from her asteroid base. Across the galaxy, more hidden installations came online. Massive shipyards that had been building human fleets in secret for decades. Weapon platforms hidden inside what appeared to be space junk. Entire artificial worlds disguised as dead planets. "You want to know the truth about humanity?" Commander Sora continued her broadcast. "We are not the aggressive species you described in your reports. We are something far more dangerous. We are patient. We plan ahead. We prepare for every possibility." The collective's bioships began transmitting confused signals as their hive minds struggled to process this new information. How had millions of connected thoughts failed to detect such a massive deception? How had their perfect intelligence network been fooled so completely, while you spent centuries fighting each other for territory and resources? Minho explained, "We spent that same time learning. We sent traitors to your worlds who were actually intelligence officers. We established diplomatic missions that were really spy networks. We offered to share our technology while secretly studying yours." Ambassador Kreese's crystal form was now flickering rapidly, a sign of extreme distress among his species. "You have violated every treaty of peaceful contact. This deception is an act of war." "No," Minho replied quietly. "This deception is the reason you are all still alive. If we had wanted war, Commander, your fleets would have been destroyed the moment they entered our solar system. Every ship you brought here has been under our weapons for the past 72 hours. The revelation hit the alien commanders like a physical blow. They had come to destroy what they thought was a weak and scattered species. Instead, they had walked into a trap that had been decades in the making, planned and executed by minds that thought not in years, but in generations." Admiral Minho's voice cut through the silence of space like a blade, reaching every corner of the galaxy through communication networks the aliens thought they controlled. His words carried the weight of centuries of human planning and the promise of swift justice. "You wanted to witness humanity's true nature, when we are cornered and desperate," he said, his calm tone somehow more terrifying than any scream of rage. "You came to our world expecting to find weak creatures who would beg for mercy. Instead, you will now observe and learn exactly why we became the masters of our own planet's deadliest predators." The transformation began instantly. Around Earth's orbit, 300 ships that had appeared to be harmless evacuation vessels suddenly changed before the aliens' horrified eyes. False hull plates fell away like dead skin, revealing sleek war machines underneath. Weapon ports opened along their sides like hungry mouths. Shield generators hummed to life, creating barriers that could stop planet-killing blasts. Captain Yuzhin stood on her bridge, watching her ship's true form emerge from its disguise. Where moments before there had been a simple refugee transport, now a predator ship hung in space, bristling with weapons that human scientists had spent decades perfecting in secret laboratories. "All Wolfpack units, this is Alpha," she spoke into her communicator, her voice filled with deadly satisfaction. "The sheep costume is off. The hunt begins now. Show these aliens what happens when they threaten our pack." Her ship's main cannon charged with a sound like thunder, targeting the nearest Zephyrian cruiser. Around her, 299 other captains were doing the same thing, each one choosing their prey with careful precision. But the disguised ships were only the beginning of humanity's surprise. Deep inside the alien vessels, sleeper agents who had spent years building false identities suddenly revealed their true purpose. Communications. Officer Donghai Lim had worked aboard the collective bioship for 5 long years, pretending to be nothing more than another mindless drone in their hive network. Every day, he had cleaned their equipment, maintained their systems, and learned their weaknesses. The other drones had accepted him completely, never suspecting that behind his blank expression was one of humanity's most skilled computer specialists. Now, as the battle began, he placed his hand on the ship's central computer core and smiled. "Time to teach you about human creativity," he whispered. Then activated the virus he had been carefully building for years. The collective ship's systems went crazy instantly. Weapons turned on their own allies. Life support began shutting down. Randomly, navigation computers started sending the ship toward the nearest star. The hive mind that controlled thousands of drones suddenly found itself fighting against its own technology. Similar scenes played out throughout the alien fleet. Agent Minjun Park, who had spent 2 years disguised as a Vorthok maintenance worker, now sabotaged their main reactor from the inside. Commander Haewon, posing as a Zephyrian translator, used her access codes to turn their communication system into a weapon that sent painful feedback through every crystal body on their ships. From her command post hidden deep inside Earth's moon, Lieutenant Colonel Sujin Kim watched the battle unfold on dozens of screens. The base around her had been carved from solid rock over 100 years ago, built by miners who thought they were just digging storage tunnels. For generations, it had waited in darkness for this exact moment. "Ghost Squadron, you are cleared for Operation Deep Strike," she commanded, her voice reaching pilots who had been waiting in the shadows between planets. "Show them what human engineering can accomplish when we stop holding back." The ghost ships appeared from nowhere, emerging from hiding places throughout the solar system. They had been waiting in the asteroid belt, camouflaged as Space Orcs. They had been lurking behind Jupiter's moons, using the giant planet's magnetic field to hide their energy signatures. They had been drifting in the cold darkness beyond Pluto, patient as sleeping sharks. Now they struck like lightning, their advanced weapons cutting through alien shields as if they were made of paper. Each ghost ship was a masterpiece of human technology, built with knowledge stolen from a dozen different species and improved by minds that never stopped asking, "How can we make this better?" The alien fleet, which had felt so confident just minutes before, suddenly found themselves trapped in a nightmare. Their own ships were turning against them thanks to human sabotage. Unknown vessels were attacking from every direction. Their communication networks were flooding with false orders and computer viruses. Ambassador Kreese tried to send orders to his crystal ships, but his commands were being blocked by systems he didn't understand. The collective's hive mind was screaming in confusion as their Biton ships malfunctioned in ways that should have been impossible. The Vorthok warriors, who had conquered countless worlds, found their weapons refusing to fire and their engines shutting down without warning. In less than 6 hours, the mighty Galactic Alliance that had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years was reduced to scattered groups of damaged ships, desperately calling for mercy. Some vessels tried to flee, only to discover that human ships were faster. Others attempted to surrender, but found their communication systems had been taken over by smiling, human faces who politely explained the terms of their defeat. The war was over almost before it began, not because of superior firepower, but because humanity had turned patience into an art form and planning into a weapon more deadly than any gun. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the Galactic Administration building in Geneva, casting long shadows across Admiral Minho Kim's new office. 3 weeks had passed since the shortest war in galactic history ended, and the world had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Where once there had been fear and uncertainty, now there was something entirely different. Hope, mixed with respectful caution from species that had learned exactly what humanity was capable of. Min-Ho stood behind his desk, reading through Surrender, documents that still seemed almost too easy to believe. The Zephyrian Collective had agreed to complete disarmament and peaceful integration. The Biomind Collective had disbanded their war fleets and requested human guidance in rebuilding their society. The ancient Vorthok Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years, had formally requested to become a protectorate under human leadership. The war had ended not with the destruction everyone expected, but with something far more powerful: humanity's demonstration that they could show mercy even when holding absolute power over their enemies. Admiral Director Yuna entered the office, carrying a tablet filled with reports. Just weeks ago, she had been Agent Sarah 7 in Zephyrian space, spending 5 years pretending to be a simple translator while secretly studying their technology and culture. Now she wore the formal robes of humanity's First Minister of Alien Affairs, responsible for helping 3 entire species adapt to life under human guidance. The integration programs are proceeding much more smoothly than our best predictions suggested, she reported, her voice filled with quiet amazement. Their children are adapting to human educational systems faster than we ever expected. The young Zephyrians especially seem fascinated by human history and philosophy. Minho nodded, unsurprised. Children adapted quickly to new situations, regardless of their species. It was the adults who struggled with change, especially when that change meant accepting that everything they had believed about themselves and their place in the universe was wrong. "What about the resistance movements?" he asked. "Our intelligence suggested there would be underground groups refusing to accept the new order." Uni smiled slightly. There were, initially, 3 separate groups tried to organize rebellions in the first week. But something interesting happened. When they attempted to recruit followers, they discovered that most of their own people were actually relieved to be free from their old governments. The Vorthok especially seemed grateful that they no longer have to live under constant threat of war. Captain Eugen entered the office, still wearing her military uniform, but now with new insignia showing her rank in the Galactic Peace Corps. The transition from war leader to peace keeper had been surprisingly easy for many human officers, who had spent their entire careers preparing for conflict, but secretly hoping they would never need to use their skills. "Sir," she announced with barely contained amusement, "the Vorthok delegation is outside. They are requesting permission to establish what they call a cultural exchange program. According to their ambassador, they want to learn about the human way of war and peace, They seem particularly interested in understanding how we can be so dangerous and so merciful at the same time. Minho chuckled quietly. The Vorthok had been the most feared warriors in the galaxy for centuries, but they had surrendered faster than anyone when they realized they were completely outmatched. Now they wanted to learn from the species that had defeated them so thoroughly. Send them in, he decided. But first, let me finish reviewing these educational reports. He looked down at his tablet, reading about programs that would have seemed impossible just a month ago. Human teachers were working with alien children, helping them learn not just human languages and customs, but human ways of thinking. The results were remarkable. Young aliens were showing creativity and problem-solving skills that their own species had. Never encouraged, through the tall windows, Minho could see the courtyard below where the real miracle was happening. Alien and human children played together, their laughter mixing in the warm afternoon air. A young Zephyrian was teaching human kids how to make light patterns with her crystal abilities, while a group of former collective drones were learning to play soccer. Their hive-mind coordination, making them surprisingly good at teamwork sports. These children would grow up in a galaxy where cooperation was normal, where different species worked together instead of fighting, where the strongest protected the weakest instead of conquering them. They would never know the old galaxy of constant war and fear that their parents had lived through. The most important lesson we taught them, Uni observed, watching the children through the window, was not about our weapons or our technology. It was about our patience. They finally understood that we could have destroyed them all decades ago, but we chose not to. We waited. We watched. We gave them every opportunity to choose peace on their own. Eugen nodded in agreement. The Vorthok ambassador told me yesterday that this was the most terrifying thing about humans. Not that we were strong enough to defeat them, but that we were wise enough to know when not to use that strength. Minho signed the final integration protocol and set down his pen. Earth's final warning to the galaxy had never been about humanity's capacity for destruction. It had been about their wisdom to understand when destruction was necessary and when mercy was stronger than violence. The galaxy would be safer now, not because humans were the most powerful species, but because they understood that true strength came from knowing when not to strike.